Men, when was the last time you cried? My number one dream in life was always to be a dad. Ever since I was a little kid, I dreamed of the day I'd be drinking coffee out of my father's day mug, reading my kids' bedtime stories, and throwing them in the air before giving them ice cream for dinner. That dream came true 5 years ago. My wife gave birth to a baby girl named Isabella. We spent that night by her side, singing off-key lullabies and changing her diapers. Every night I talked to Isabella about how lucky I was to have her, and how there's no ocean I wouldn't cross for her. Unfortunately, things turned sour very quickly. My wife developed postpartum, and it was bad. The doctors told us she might experience mood swings, but promised it wouldn't be much more than that. But within 8 months of Isabella being home, my wife began lashing out. Seemingly overnight, she became angry, erratic, borderline schizophrenic, and violent. She'd throw things, scream at Isabella for crying, curse me out. She tossed our picture frames against a wall and screamed she was going to call Isabella, that this was all her fault. I remember giving her a double dose of sleeping pills without her knowing. It sounds bad, but I couldn't put Isabella in danger. The next day, the day Isabella nearly died, started at 7 a.m. when I sat my wife down. Please, let's see a doctor, I begged. I told her I loved her, but she needed help. My wife's eyes stayed stone cold. Before I knew it, she was shouting again, screaming that this was our daughter's fault and that I loved Isabella more than I loved her. I tried to take her hand, but she bit me. She ran upstairs towards Isabella's room with a knife in her hand, and I had to physically push her down and run into the room myself. I locked it and held Isabella for hours while my wife stabbed and pounded at the door. By this point, Isabella was already traumatized. She barely responded to me. The silly faces she used to laugh at now resulted in empty stares. Her cries were quiet, scared whimpers. She wasn't the happy kid growing up in a warm, loving home I dreamed of. She was a scared, terrified girl who had stopped crying just to not give her mother a reason to yell. I remember feeling like a failure looking into her eyes that day while her mother banged on the door. I couldn't go on like this. I decided I was done, not just because my wife was banging on the door or because the police were coming, but also because Isabella spoke her first words that day. Stop, she said. I was confused at first, but then it hit me. Throughout the first 8 months of her life, she'd heard me begging her mother to stop more times than she heard mama or dada. That's why she was saying stop. My heart shattered, but by the time police had arrived, my wife already looked like the victim. Once she realized officers were on their way, she'd bruised herself in the bathroom and told them I did it. They believed her and placed Isabella into her arms while I was led away in handcuffs. I screamed and resisted my whole way out, and it's only at the police station did I prove my innocence. You see, my wife didn't know about the cameras in Isabella's room, the ones I installed out of fear. It didn't take long for officers to see what had really happened. They gave my Isabella back to me, but by the time I got her, it was basically too late. There were red handprints on her back. Her legs were bruised. Her ribs were broken. Her mother had laid hands on her repeatedly. I took my baby to the hospital where they had to hook her up to machines. I used every dollar to my name to keep my baby alive. My wife went to prison for 7 years, which felt like a slap in the face, but Isabella got better. It took her a few months, but I finally brought her home. I used the little money I had left to rent a cheap one-bedroom apartment, and I thought this was it. We were finally free. Her mother couldn't bother us anymore. Then the 7 years my wife was imprisoned for passed. I'd spent those 7 years doing everything I could to make sure Isabella grew happy, and I did well. She went from being afraid to cry to bawling her eyes out when she needed a diaper change. Soon, she started hugging me and demanding cuddles. By the time she was attending school, she refused to sleep until I told her a story, and then came the day that changed everything. I came home from work on a random Wednesday to find her drawing. She told me to close my eyes and wait, and when she told me to open them, I burst into tears. It was me and her as stick figures, holding hands, with "Best Dad Ever, I Love You" written on top. I looked up at her, and her brown eyes sparkled. I scooped her into my arms and nuzzled her into my chest, trying to hold back tears, but I couldn't do it. I cried on her shoulder. She wiped my tears with her sleeve and told me if I was crying, she needed to cry too. She then burst into a dramatic fake cry that made me laugh. It was the best day of my life. Sadly, what followed was the worst day of my life, because not even a week later, her mother contacted me. She wanted Isabella and was taking me to court for full custody. Full story on channel linked below.